everyone's, really wants to see this go into production. We're drilling as we speak right now. We got local drillers, we got locals, obviously, helping to run the camp and do all the logistics for us. But everyone is on the anticipation that in time, we're going to be able to define a sizable resource here and get this back into production.
Welcome viewers to Assay TV. I have with me today Mario Stifano, who is CEO and Director of Omai Gold Mines. Omai is an exploration company with an experienced management team and a brownfield mine located in Guyana, and we're going to be hearing all about this exciting project and some of its attributes. Mario, very warm welcome to you. Why don't we start with a little bit of context perhaps on Omai Gold Mines. Tell us about the company and the team.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, because I think this is pretty exciting, and I love getting the story out there because I really do think Omai is one of the better gold exploration and potential development stories out there, bar none. So a little bit about Omai and the history, as you mentioned. This was a former Cambior project. It was discovered in the 90s. It went into operation in the early 90s. Sorry, I believe it was discovered in the 80s, went into operation in the early 90s. Operated for 10 years plus. Cambior ran into some financial difficulties, which some of your readers may recall and listeners may recall. They had a hedge book, and Cambior was then taken over by OMG Gold. But the result of the low gold price environment, which you would have seen in the late 90s into the early 2000s, when Omai was shut down, gold was at $350 an ounce. But because of the difficulties Cambior had, they really didn't spend money on exploration beyond the two discoveries that they had. And this has been a great mine, don't get me wrong. I mean, most people would be, ecstatic having mined 3.8 million ounces of gold at 1.6 grams. I mean, that's a fantastic gold mine. But we think the reality is that was, hopefully we think it was just the tip of the iceberg of really what was Omai. And back then, this area of Guyana and the Guyana Shield on the Latin American side wasn't really well understood. And the reason why this was eventually shut down by OMG Gold is because Cambior also had another discovery in Suriname, and that discovery was Rosabelle. And we all know Rosabelle is a world-class asset. And OMG Gold made the decision to move the mill from Omai, because there was no resources left, to Rosabelle. And at the time it was a great decision, I think, by OMG Gold, because they had a world-class discovery and they were able to get into production fairly quickly. But our opportunity as Omai management and shareholders is really what was left behind by Cambior and OMG Gold.
Yep, excellent. Thank you for that rundown. So what's the mining environment like within Guyana? It sounds like you've got the history, you've got the pedigree with the actual site.
Yep. Guyana is one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing country now in Latin America, because the oil and gas discoveries offshore by Exxon, and also a huge amount of investment going into the country looking for more oil and gas offshore. But even prior to that, mining was viewed quite favorably in the country. It is the big job creator for Guyana. So also you have Guyana Goldfields that was just taken over from Zijin, which was the large operating mine. Troy Resources got an operating mine there as well. And our dealings with the Guyanese government as well, directly with the Guyanese government, has been extremely favorable. So, they've been supportive of Omai in every step of the way, and really want to see this go back into production, because it really is I'll call it the flagship mine for the country. It's really what put Guyana on the map, because it was the largest producing gold mine in Latin America at one point, pure gold mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of your program then for drilling and getting this resource going again. What are some of the highlights of recent activity?
Yeah, so great question. There are two pits that were currently mined, or that were mined at Omai, that we're currently looking at. The first one is Fennell, and the second is Wenot. Combined, those two pits produce, as I mentioned, 3.8 million ounces at 1.6 grams open pit. but our view is the mineralization didn't stop there. At Wenot, I'll start with Wenot. It's open on strike and to depth. And if you looked at some of our recent assays that we released, basically what happened after the asset was returned to the Guyanese government, there was another Canadian junior that raised some funds and drilled some holes. But lucky for us, they didn't assay a lot of their holes. And they drilled below Wenot. We were getting things like, 3.5 grams over 20 meters. We got the 9 grams over 14 meters. And that's all below the Wenot Pit. And Wenot's only been mined to about 180 meter depth. And remember, this is the greenstone belt. So these ore bodies do not stop just because you decide to stop drilling. And there is no structure right now that we can identify that would stop the ore from continuing depth. And if you look at some of our slides and our sections, you can see what really at Wenot, you got these almost perfectly vertical, high-grade structures that continue to depth. But really, what's really important for investors to understand now is when this was an operation by Cambior and IAMGOLD, people didn't really recognize that there was mineralization in the sediments. It wasn't really looked at. And Rosabelle and in fact, Marion, and our VP of exploration, by the way, discovered Marion. He's considered the foremost authority of gold mineralization in the Guyana Shield, and that's Dennis Lapointe. So he knows this area better than almost any other geologist, if not the most of any geologist. And back then, people weren't looking in the sediments for gold. And if you look at our most recent news release, you'll see mineralization in the sediments and high-grade mineralization in the sediments. So that really opens up the exploration opportunity, not only to depth at Wenot, which we think is completely wide open because we extend the mineralization another 150 meters below the lowest point of the pit, which is telling us this thing is wide open. It's still open on strike. IAMGOLD had an internal resource where the mill was located to the west of about 300,000 ounces. Again, non 43101 compliant, but it's there. In our view, whether it's 300,000 ounces, plus or minus a certain percentage, but we do know there's quite a bit of mineralization where the mill was located. But now the sediments have been opened up, and we have a couple of targets to the south of Wenot in the sediments. And the drilling that we're seeing there, plus another hole that was drilled to the south, is we think is potentially vectoring to these other targets, which is really going to change what many people view as a brownfield site to really a brownfield plus a pure exploration play, which is where things get really exciting. And then if you look at Fennell, which is the other pit, that was mined to about 200 meter depth. And at Fennell, they hit a non-mineralized dike and they couldn't mine any further via open pit. But, lucky for us and our investors is another 46 holes were drilled through this dike, and it's about 150 meters thick, let's say. And they drilled 46 holes, and within those 46 holes, there were 41 intercepts of 31 grams per ton or greater over a meter or greater. So we know there's real high grade structures sitting below the Fennell pit. IAMGOLD actually estimated, again, non 43101 compliant, I just want to make this very clear to everyone, but IAMGOLD estimated between 1.5 million ounces at 2.5 grams or 2.5 million ounces at 4 grams, and depending on whether you capped it or not. So obviously you're going to have some capping, but from an investor perspective, when they did that resource, from what we can tell, they really constructed resource as if this was going to be a continuation of an open pit, which you wouldn't do, right? Because you got these high grade structures. So we're pretty confident that 2.5 to 4 gram range is actually going to be higher grade if we design it as an underground ore body. I don't know what the impact will be on the ounces of the 1.5 to 2.5 million range that IAMGOLD estimated, but we do believe there is high grade gold structures sitting below the Fennell pit. And again, it's not just, these existing ore bodies that we're looking for new mineralization. So Fennell, as I said, I think investors got to look at this as a brownfield exploration, which is, low hanging fruit where we can get lots of ounces fairly quickly at Wenot and Fennell, but also greenfield type exploration or near mine exploration, because just east of Fennell, there were a few holes drilled by IAMGOLD, because they were looking for the eastern extension of Fennell, and it wasn't there. They weren't going to hit it. But from the geophysics that we've done, and keep in mind, there wasn't even any geophysics that we were able to identify by IAMGOLD here. So we ran our own geophysics, and just east of Fennell, there's an area called Broccoli Hill. And to us, that's one of our top exploration targets, because we think if IAMGOLD continue to drill further east and a little bit deeper, they would have hit Broccoli Hill. And you can see from the geophysics, it's got the same signature as Fennell, but it's a different structure. So it's not a continuation of the same ore body. We think it potentially could be another ore body, but it's not just geophysics, right? Because lots of people, when they look at geophysics, it's pretty colors, and what the hell does it mean? And lots of times you drill geophysical targets, you hit, and many times you don't, and most times you don't. To be pretty frank here, or a lot of times people have discoveries, and then they do the geophysics, and they say, "Oh, of course it was there. I can see in the geophysics." But in our case, it's not just the geophysics. We see it in the structures, and we also see it from the surface mineralization. So historically, in the 1900s and late 1800s, there was quite a bit of alluvial workings there. We've done our own auger drilling. So we've actually identified a 500 meter by 500 meter area of gold mineralization from surface works. So it's everything coming combined that's telling us, there is real potential for new discoveries in and around the initial Omai. And for readers that don't really, and viewers that don't really know the Guyana Shield on the Latin American side, and particularly Marion and Rosabelle, Rosabelle is not one big deposit. It's a multitude of bigger and smaller deposits. Same with Marion, right? It's a combination of open pit, bigger and smaller, and some underground resources that Newmont, they're producing about 500,000 ounces there a year. But that was not understood in the 90s and early 2000 when Omai was discovered and put into operation. So we know that now. Our geologist, VP of Exploration, Dennis Lapointe, knows that extremely well because he discovered Marion. So I think that's the real opportunity here. We're looking for another Rosabelle, Marion style discovery.
Yep, absolutely. Excellent. So what about some of the other attributes that you're leveraging off this brownfield, greenfield play here? ESG is a big factor for investors at the moment, but presumably you've got this pedigree with Omai already being an established mine. You've got this acknowledgement from the community where this can bring a lot to the local area. Does that help you in your positioning and your exploration work on the greenfield element, as well as getting Omai going again?
Yes, definitely, without a doubt. You mentioned the community. And I think I mentioned a little bit earlier about oil and gas. So oil and gas is going to bring in a lot of revenue to the Guyanese government, which is going to help them build infrastructure and really improve the quality of life for their citizens. But what oil and gas doesn't really provide, particularly offshore platforms, doesn't really provide is a lot of paying jobs. So the Guyanese government is really focused on getting mineral exploration and assets in production, because those are the ones that create a lot of jobs. So the community, the government wants us to get Omai back in production because it is going to provide, high-paying jobs for their locals in the wider community. So, our experience to date has been extraordinarily supportive. Everyone's, really wants to see this go into production. We're drilling as we speak right now. We got local drillers. We got locals, obviously, helping to run the camp and do all the logistics for us. But everyone is on the anticipation that in time, we're going to be able to define a sizable resource here and get this back into production.
Yep. Excellent. And how's the institutional investor and the investor response been so far to the story? And
yeah, so I think because we're a fairly new story, we basically started trading middle part of November. I'm not sure we have a strong institutional following as yet. I know there are a couple institutions in the story, obviously, but we're not at the level that we're going to get the big institutional following. I think that's the big opportunity for retail investors here, because coming in now when they know ahead of the institutions is going to be very important and potentially financially rewarding. The reason why the institutions aren't in there yet is because we don't actually have 43-101 resources, right? So a lot of institutions will, when they do their due diligence, do their valuations, what's the potential, what's there so far, and there's nothing that we have on the books that could be qualified as 43-101. Now, someone who does their own work, I think could come to a conclusion very quickly that there's a lot of ounces there, and a good example of that is Silvercorp. Silvercorp owns 15%, just over 15% of the company. and they put in 4.5 million US at around 20 cents, which is where we're trading at now, prior to our listing on the exact same view, right? When you do the modeling here, you can see there's quite a bit of ounces here. And, once we start getting more drill results out and new drilling, because everything we've released to date was old drilling that was not assayed, was never drilled by us. But we do have a 5,000 meter drill program underway. I think we've completed now our third hole, and we're just starting our fourth hole. So, there's gonna be a lot of catalysts coming over the coming months around this drill program. And our anticipation will be, of course, that we're going to have some good results below Wenot. That's going to demonstrate that the ore body extends to depth. And then from there, I think we'll start adding a second drill, and we'll be able to then drill Fennell, and then we'll be able to look for new discoveries. And I think once we get to the position of doing new discovery drilling, looking for the next Fennell, the next Wenot in and around this area, then I think the market's really going to understand that this is not just a brownfield project. It really is a brownfield with a lot of blue sky, because we see a number of targets. And if anyone goes through our presentation, anyone could always send me an email or call me. But if you look at the geophysics, we've already identified a number of targets. And again, it's not just the geophysics, it's structural geology. It's what we're seeing on the ground. And based on those three things, we've identified a number of targets in and around the Wenot and Fennell pits.
Yep. Fantastic opportunity for resource expansion and some further exploration. Just Definitely. For key milestones for this year for investors watching, do you have some set dates for your drill program that people should be watching for that news flow?
Yeah, definitely. So as I mentioned, we got a 5,000 meter drill program underway. We just completed our third hole, so I expect in the next 3 weeks or so to come out with some assays on maybe our first 1 or 2 holes. Everything's, as you know, is always delayed trying to get assays. The industry is booming, which is fantastic. But again, I don't think we're very well recognized as yet, because we're a new story on the block. So we're going to continue to drill. So you're going to get lots of results from our drill program at Wenot. And then by the end of the year, we're going to come up with a 43101 resource at Wenot, because I think that's just the easiest low-hanging fruit. There is quite a few holes that were drilled below the pit by IAMGOLD, plus these holes that we released over the last month that were never assayed, plus what we're drilling. We think we got a good shot to come out with an inferred resource, just to show the market that this ore body was not dead. There is quite a bit of ounces left behind. And then going into 2022, we'll be in the later part of this year, we'll begin drilling Fennell and some of these other new discovery type targets that we're looking for.
Yeah, excellent. Well, it's a really busy period coming up for you, Mario, and we look forward to
we're excited.
Plenty of news and being able to cover that and promote that for you. Thanks for joining Assay TV.
No, thank you. Anytime any of your viewers and readers want to reach out to me, I'm always available to talk about Omai. I'm excited about this project.
Yep, indeed. Thanks very much.
Thank you.